All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to join our webcast. My name is Alex. I'm the marketing specialist for Auritas, and I'll be your host for today. Everyone should already see my screen, and although you guys are muted, it does not mean we don't want to hear from you. I strongly encourage everyone to ask questions throughout the presentation via the chat feature. At the end of the presentation, we'll be reviewing everyone's questions during our Q&A portion of the webcast. This is the agenda, and we'll be going through a brief overview of who we are, what Auritas does, and then next we'll go into migration to S4. Next up after that, we'll go through Greenfield versus system conversion and the differences. Then we'll talk about our S4 deployment accelerators and how to approach these specific accelerators. Finally, we'll get to the Q&A. First up, we have Deepak Seed, our CTO, who has spent the last 2 decades in the data and content management space. Deepak has presented on numerous topics at various SAP events and regularly contributes his expertise to enterprise business leaders. Next to him, we have Bill Rogers, who is our senior client partner serving the Northeast here at Auritas. Bill has over 15 years of experience in enabling customers with information technology solutions and services in verticals such as retail, manufacturing, energy, telecommunications, and media entertainment. For everyone here who might not know who Auritas is, or you're just hearing our name for the first time, or maybe you're wondering what exactly it is that we do, I'm going to give you a brief overview. We've been in the business for over 15 years. We're founded in 2003. We're headquartered just outside of Orlando, Florida. We're well known in the SAP ecosystem as the data and content management experts, as well as the industry leader in delivering a complex ECM, ILM, and SAP HANA optimization solutions. We're known for leveraging our decades of SAP and OpenText expertise to maximize the use of native functionality, which enables our customers to do more with less. We stress the phrase process before technology, which largely in part is due to the Auritas vision, which is to help you implement an overall data management strategy to meet your digital transformation goals. Here you can see that we offer comprehensive solutions at every stage of the information lifecycle. We do this better by addressing key business drivers, considering the customer experience, operational processes, and your business model as we engineer and execute unique action plans in order to align your business with IT strategy. First up, I'm going to be handing over the mic to Deepak Seed, who's going to go over the migration to S4HANA. Deepak?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webcast. This is a quick introduction to our series of different webinars that we conduct with you. Now, some of the things that I wanted to refer or connect with you out here is what are the different driving factors, why companies want to move towards HANA. I'm sure you have heard this, multiple ways and by different folks presenting their ideas around it, but here is our take for it. Why are companies in a large portion moving to S4 migration, and what are the drivers for that? Number one, it's an in-memory database. A whole new technology shift whereby you're not storing information onto your hard drives. You're using your memory for processing information, loading the data out there, and that improves the overall response time for the whole solution. What SAP did as part of their whole S4 deployment was not only doing a change at the database layer, they also made a tremendous amount of changes into the processing of their application layer. They realized that a good amount of data, when it goes into the application layer, there's a lot of fetching and storage, and there is a lot of back and forth process that goes on in the system, and it was counterproductive to the productivity on overall OLTP time, online transaction processing time for any application. So they brought down all of those functions down to the database layer. And they consolidated those functions, and even the fact that now you do not need to have tables that needs aggregation, that needs summarization. All of those things have been now brought down to a layer where you are able to process that information really, really fast. The first results, the first outcome of all of those things, where the whole process yields really fast results was in the area of finance. And SAP released their first version called Simple Finance. And now that you know that as the things are coming along, there are multiple features and functions that have been available on S4HANA migration. As a matter of fact, the latest version of S4 presents pretty much all the functionality that you get into the core deployment of ECC, plus all the industry solutions. There are one or two solutions that have been left behind, like IS Media and all, that might not be fully available to you in your current release, but almost all the industry solutions are now available on the S4HANA bandwagon. So the biggest challenge is that this product addresses compression. So you will find that, HANA database does not require indexes. So since it doesn't require indexes, it's a huge benefit. And right away, you see that there is, you have about 40% of your database footprint, which is being utilized by indexes. Now you don't need to do that. Now, that's a great value add. Now, is there a con that come with that part? Well, what happens is that if you are not using indexes, you have to constantly optimize your tables. You have to constantly make sure that you are loading all of that information in a highly regulated and compliant way into the HANA memory so that you get the intended results. Well, there are certain kind of tables, like cluster tables and all, that do not lend itself into memory in an efficient manner. So what did SAP do for that? For those cluster tables, SAP converted all of those tables into transparent tables. And when you convert any standard table into a transparent table, the size of that particular table really grows. Actually, the term that they use is it explodes in the whole process. So again, here is a value add that you get a very strong compression using the HANA process functions, but then the kind of tables, you have to constantly keep it in mind. Columnar storage. The going process or the going premise behind converting or building this whole process with columnar storage was the fact that the reporting engine of that functionality is really, really good when you do columnar-based storage. See, all your databases, there are two kind of database structures, OLTP and OLAP, online transaction processing and online analytical processing. SAP came up with this great idea, with this novel idea that, look, how about I use a single platform vis-a-vis HANA columnar-based storage where I'm able to do amazing reporting functions. I'm able to do really fast reporting functions, but then how are you going to address a situation where you have to enter information and there is a challenge? And that's where SAP came some creative ways of storing information into a columnar storage, but not compromise with the performance. So as we are looking at this in the HANA platform, you want to make sure that those parameters are highly optimized, and that is something that we do in our HANA optimization services that we address and comply with those things. Consistent reach and larger databases fit to the memory. See, when you have an in-memory solution all coming together, memories are expensive. You as a matter of fact, many times you will find that the cost per gig has gone up to 12, in certain cases up to 20 times the standard storage that you will get on a hard disk. So how do you make sure that you have all of those things addressed in your HANA environment? Again, something to be looked into, and data staging, data segmentation, data compliance, privacy, all of those things come into play, and that makes this exercise very relevant for any company who is going towards the S4HANA platform. So there are different methodologies that you can use for deploying the S4HANA solution, but what you're looking at is a most commonly adopted practice. As a matter of fact, SAP came up with an Activate methodology for deploying these solutions. And Activate methodology is a refined version of the agile deployment that you do in organizations for new product development or new product implementation. But what we have done with this exercise is we have borrowed all the features that are available in the SAP's Activate methodology and help you implement these solutions with even better choices so that you are able to reduce your time and cost, reduce your risk of deployment because you do multiple runs and multiple sprints in this whole process, and you have the flexibility of seeing your results. You can see how your project is progressing. You can quantify the risks that you have and the challenges that are coming or that you currently have in your system. But is that information enough? many times you will find that there are additional functions that are required. And in our next slide, you will see how we have made these functions more relevant. You will find that we have built different phases, and each of those phases we have incorporated certain enhanced functions that I'm going to talk later in the presentation, how this S4 deployment becomes a lot more predictable and in your environment. Bill is going to cover some of the details around Greenfield and system converter deployment approaches. And after that, I'm going to share some of the creative things that we are doing in this space for helping facilitate companies move towards S4. Bill?
Thank you, Deepak. Hey, folks, this is Bill Rogers, client partner with Auritas, and I, too, want to thank you for joining us on today's webcast. So before we cover the ways to accelerate an S4HANA deployment, let's touch upon the available deployment approaches available to companies, as well as the factors to consider in selecting an approach, and also isolating those considerations that are strategic for the approaches. So as you can see here, there's really two deployment paths that every enterprise has available to them in going to S4HANA. One being the Greenfield deployment path, where you're literally standing up a new implementation in S4HANA of your SAP landscape, versus system conversion, or also called brownfield approach, where you're literally taking your existing instance and landscape and literally standing it up in your S4HANA framework. So if we see in the next slide, a little bit more differentiation between the two. Again, from a Greenfield standpoint, you are literally starting from scratch. You're migrating all of your existing data from your existing landscape. But what's key here is that you can take advantage of some predefined migration objects with best practices, which ultimately is going to lower your time to value by enabling faster adoption of innovation by virtue of embracing these best practices and predefined objects. Versus the system conversion approach, where, as stated earlier, you're literally migrating your existing SAP landscape into S4HANA without or minimal disruption. And we say without or minimal because you're going to have a little bit more flexibility in this approach, because you can migrate and phase in your implementation, whether that's by geography, business unit, or functionality within the solution footprint. So to add a little bit more context, either one of these approaches are strategic in nature and need to be addressed. But in looking at which of the two approaches is best for an enterprise, it is strategic, and it's not necessarily that straightforward. So in looking at the strategic aspects of which approach, you want to look at certain attributes and aspects, some of them being obviously technical aspects as well as functional aspects. Also, how much custom code has been embedded in your current landscape, in addition to your configuration efforts to support your key business processes. Change management is an issue particularly emphasized in a Greenfield approach, where if you're instituting best practices and a different approach on some of the processes, you're going to want to be very sensitive to any of the change management organizational implications as well. Resources and skill sets, as well as project management, is a factor in determining which approach. And then last but not least, what is the available budget that the enterprise has in doing the migration over to S4HANA? So to continue in that particular discussion thread, what we're doing here is, in this chart, we're depicting some of the IT considerations, or CIO considerations, in the center of the chart. And as you can see here, on the left, we've placed strategic importance, 5 being highest, against those particular considerations. And to the right, we just at a summary level show Greenfield versus system conversion. What are the inherent strengths or non-strengths in looking at either one of the approaches. So for legacy platform overhead, the simple fact that you're standing up a new environment and you're still dealing with your legacy environment, and you're literally having them run in parallel for a given point in time. Greenfield is, you have to deal and pay more attention to legacy platform overhead versus system conversion by virtue of literally forklifting your existing environment into to the new landscape, you don't necessarily have that burden. Quite the inverse on downtime, right? You're not subjected to any downtime because you're not doing any system conversion in Greenfield per se, more so pronounced in system conversion approach. Data pollution, both master data and transactional data. We'll talk about this later on as far as some of the accelerators that we're going to outline in the webcast today. But, this is a challenge in either one of the approaches. So inevitable, but nonetheless. Realizing a bloated S4 database size on day one, not necessarily the case with Greenfield, because you have an opportunity to optimize your new and fresh landscape, but certainly you run that risk on the system conversion aspect. As far as automated retention compliance, similar to data pollution, it's going to be evident in both implementation approaches and needs particular attention. And then on the historical business rules that are being retained, you're obviously going to be able to take advantage of those historical business rules by converting over in the system conversion approach, not necessarily as compelling though for your Greenfield. And then data volume management for future growth, similar to some of the other considerations evident in both approaches. So all in all, looking at all of these aspects, and weighing them and looking at the enterprise, regardless of the deployment approach, the overarching objectives obviously is to lower your implementation costs and at the same time lower your implementation risk, and also increasing your deployment speed, getting more agile and getting the velocity. So just wanted to level set. Now I want to hand back to Deepak, and let's talk about some of the deployment accelerators we want to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. That was helpful. I mean, I wonder how many of you are in this process of deciding whether you want to go towards the Greenfield or on the system conversion, but I will encourage you to talk to Bill, or for that matter, some of our SMEs, if this is a paradigm you are looking at and you want to find out what are the latest recommendations from SAP coming into that space. Now let's move on to our core of the presentations out there, that what exactly are we bringing to the table? What are the 5 accelerators we have, and how is it that you can take advantage of those things? See, there are some areas where you will find that these accelerators differ, especially in section 5, where we are saying that if you're going to go towards system decommissioning, in what situation would that make sense? And if you're going towards aggressive archiving, on what occasions would be that be a perfect scenario for you? So removing the polluted information. You are constantly looking at your production optimizations and the performance that you might face to make, that once you are logged on or once you are up and running onto the S4 platform. Well, what are the things that you have to be careful about? Many times you will find that you want to reduce your maintenance windows. You want to reduce or stabilize your system sizes and clean up your master data. Well, what are the impediments? What are the challenges for making that thing happen? You will find that there is a lot of master data that is a polluted data in your system. Multiple master data records have been created. Well, you might say to me, well, I have it already covered. I'm deploying MDG as part of this exercise. Absolutely great idea to go towards MDG. Well, even with MDG, as putting as your process, what about the master data records that you have already implemented and you have run transactional records around it? You could have the same vendor name with an extra letter, and multiple vendors are being, or multiple names are being used for the same vendors, and you are not able to decipher that. Archiving will be able to get rid of all of that polluted information for you and link it with the standard transactional records. So that's one thing that you want to look into. Prep yourself, and it will add, believe me, from a performance and system optimization perspective, it will be a huge value add for you, and it is going to also help you comply with your data privacy regulations. We have not touched that area right now, but data privacy is becoming very, very important these days. You will find that we conducted some webinars about what GDPR is all about. Guess what? California Data Protection Act has come through, and that is called the mini GDPR. There are a lot of states who are following through on a similar, data privacy issues for their respective citizens. Washington has come right behind. Michigan is working on it. Vermont is already passing one region, and North Carolina, the state of North Carolina, is also passing a similar guidelines. So you should have the tools to address these requirements, but at the same time, you should be prepping your data to comply with those requirements. So DVM in that space, whether you build a data discipline approach, whether you build a productivity approach, all of those things are going to comply and make sure that you are able to address all of those requirements for you. And of course, it is going to improve your overall efficiency in the system. Net, you want to address this whole exercise with the big picture of what is it that you're doing with your data volume management. See, this is the recommendation from SAP that, guys, you do not need to keep all your data in your primary expensive database. This message has been sent and presented to customers for years together. It has become so important now that your platform is a very, very expensive platform. So what SAP is suggesting multiple times, and now honing it very, very directly, is that you want to keep your data. You need to have access to the information that is relevant to your business, but that does not mean that it has to be in the most expensive storage that you have. You can have access to historical information from anywhere, provided we provide you seamless access to that information or that content. And this is what we do with proper data management and data archiving strategies. And how do we make sure that we cover that piece? These are the areas that we list and make sure that we comply. We have our assessment. We have the system scoping. We make sure that we have understood all of your business processes, as part of our implementation. Auritas as an organization now has over 240 projects under its belt where they did all of these works. You would think that with so many successful and referenceable customers, we will have collected all those details from multiple customers, the different challenges they face, how to address that, how to implement it, and how to comply with those things. And this is what we make sure that we cover as part of our implementation strategy. This is where option number 2 comes into play. Data management strategy directly relates to segmenting the information, identifying what should be kept in the database, what should be kept in the archives, what should be kept in a secondary storage, tools like dynamic tiering, extension nodes, or certain other functions out there, or for that matter, what data should be safely disposed. I did not use the term deleted because it's a similar term, but when you have the process all addressed by compliance and privacy officers, it's called defensible disposition, and you want to address that accordingly in the system. So data management strategy addresses all of those things. And here is an example from Dr. Plattner, the founder of SAP and now the founder of the HANA ecosystem with the HANA database and all, where he specifically mentioned in his publishing, in his book, that you want to make sure that you cover all of those activities up front, even before and after moving to the HANA platform. But the thing that I wanted to really share with you in this screen is that you might have done your SAP sizing analysis. You would have looked, my database is 22 terabytes, and now if I have to create a production instance, a SAN copy, a QA, I'm looking, even with the compression, of another 20 terabyte instance coming along with all the multipliers out there. And that's an expensive storage. Your hardware investment itself would be somewhere to the tunes of $6 to $8 million, leaving aside the SAP enterprise licenses for HANA or even the runtime licenses coming along. Well, what if I say that I can reduce your database footprint by up to 50% even before you go there? And that's where the S4HANA sizing exercise and the data management techniques come into play. And that's where it is so important that you look into it, make sure that you have all these creative functions put together. We did an analysis with one organization, a manufacturing organization. We are able to reduce their database size by 70%. 70, folks, I'm not kidding. This is where they realize that they have so much redundant information they are capturing, they have so much historical information that they are hosting, and also they have certain data that can be plain deleted, metadata and all, and some of that blob data that can be migrated onto the third-party storage solution. This is an example of the screen where we list how creative techniques can be utilized for migrating the data so that you have a very, very efficient deployment of your S4HANA solution. So much for talking about S4HANA, which is your core platform and core transaction processing platform. You must be asking, hey, do you not have any solution for BW, for BW for HANA and BW on HANA? This is what SAP is presenting as their roadmap. There are tools like dynamic tiering. There are tools like extension nodes that SAP has brought forward in that landscape, in addition to the standard nearlining process. We put all of those things together, whether you're running HANA Live, whether you're running BW for HANA or HANA, making sure that if you have a BPC solutions, classic, or deploying the new solution, all of those things are being addressed. Not only that, if at all you have any future processes or the functions coming along, you should be able to address all of those things put together. Now, building a data management strategy is very important for you to move on to this expensive solution. Now, data management strategy, does it include just reducing your database footprint? Not necessarily. It includes a lot more than that. If I have to address these pieces, you want to make sure your performance is addressed, your execution of data on a day-to-day basis for complying and receivables and payables, it is addressed in an expeditious manner. You are constantly monitoring the quality of your data, how it is coming along, and in this whole process, you are able to address your governance and compliance needs. Compliance with governance directly leads you into your data privacy area. Data privacy area, as I have mentioned, is rearing its head in a very, very strong way. Folks, I do not know if you have seen that Google has been fined a good amount of millions of dollars, and so is Facebook, facing a lot of charges in Europe. But that thing is coming in the United States. The first challenge that you're going to face is in the state of California. If any one of you attending the webcast today or hearing this webcast later find out that you are doing business with the residents of California, you have to make sure that you comply with all the needs around data privacy for them. You need to look into it and make sure that the process is there. How can you do that? First piece, well, let me understand the rules. Second piece, based on those rules, can I find out where that data is in my system? Third piece, now that I have identified all of those things in my environment, how do I comply with that? Meaning, how do I execute if I have to do data disposition, if I have to do legal holds, if I have to present the content that you're storing? All of those things are being addressed as part of the SAP's ILM and EIM strategy. So these are the 5 things that we are listing as the things that you can do immediately in your environment to make sure that you are on the roadmap for complying all of those things. You might ask, okay, well, I understand that the things that you're doing, but who should I be working with? Who are the stakeholders? We have also listed the people who you want to build the team with. And we conducted another webinar about a month ago about detailing what exactly is GDPR and how CCPA is all linked together. I highly encourage you to ping our marketing team or look at our historical webinar, and you will get a pretty detailed insight about what is it that you have to do on that. Another challenge that we find with many organizations is they say, I do not know where I want to start. How do I know my data is going to look like, really good? I'll have a challenge in S4HANA solution. Well, it's like trying to visualize what's going to happen once I'm live with this solution. And it is difficult. because you have to invest into licenses, you have to invest into hardware, and you have to invest into processes of migration, and then say, is it worth it or is it not worth it? Knowing the fact that it has to be worth it for you, considering you have to migrate into the solution come 2025. There is no other option left. But still, till that time, is it the time to move into that? Is it the time to invest into the solution? We help our customers by doing these prototypes. Well, what constitutes prototype? The constitution from our perspective is an effort to make them see how their data as of the today config looks like when they move to S4. What are the capabilities? What are the functionalities? What are the new functions that you can get right away when you do this exercise? What we have done for addressing that piece is we have brought our HANA labs into the solution. We have invested a good amount of, $6-7 million worth of investment, 7 digits, investment as part of our R&D deployment. And you will find that now with that deployment, we can take your sample data, we can present that data into our S4 environment, do all the SLT processes around there, and we make you visualize how this data looks like once you move into S4. This is a simpler way of doing those things. For sure, we would not be able to present all of that data for you, but we will be able to present, given the time and the effort, certain modules for you, and you can play with it. We give you access for handling all of those things. Last but not the least, what do you do based on the option you have picked in your environment? If it is a greenfield or a system conversion, how do you handle that thing? So here are some of the examples that I'm presenting. If you are doing a greenfield deployment, meaning you are starting your system ground up, you are doing entirely new config, building totally new processes and all, and what's going to happen for your legacy data? Well, you're going to move some of your open records, your master data records onto the new system. Rest everything you're going to leave behind. And leaving behind means you're going to keep it running forever. And it's okay if it was sitting in your data center in some corner, running the reports and presenting the information. Well, you have another problem with that exercise: data privacy. Any request that comes where you have to now present information to your users, to your auditors, to your data privacy officers, now you have to search your current platform, the new greenfield deployment, as well as the historical system. It's a big pain in the neck, and very soon you will find that you also have to comply with their data disposition requirement. So to address all of those things, our solution is use ILM's decommissioning platform. Take all that data, move it into retention warehouse, the ILM functionality. And when you have that data into retention warehouse, you can address these requirements. And when comes the time for disposition, you can safely dispose that data without any impact in the system and make sure you are able to address all of those drivers as part of that deployment. Now, what is the benefit that you're going to get? Well, you have a single solution which can address all of your legacy system needs. In other terms, if you have one SAP systems or if you have 20 SAP systems, one SAP application can host all of them, and you can view all of that data from a single application and be compliant with data privacy, with retention requirements, and with any kind of governance coming through. Let's consider how that thing can be done. These are some of the screens that you're looking at where you use the SLT processes, and we can even use SAP BW for addressing both SAP and non-SAP data compliance in the system. We also have some solutions around using Hadoop and some other platform to address your needs. And if that comes as push come to shove, if you want to address that, there are tools that are leveraging SAP's multi-scale investment and present all of that information to your users. What about if you are doing system conversion? This is the most common way now SAP companies are moving into their new environment, and it is rightly so. You have invested a lot of time and effort into making sure that your config is complying with all of your business needs, and as you move to S4HANA, you want to continue with that. Well, if that's the case, we strongly recommend that you do very aggressive archiving. Once you do very aggressive archiving, you will be able to reduce your footprint, as I had mentioned earlier, by good over 50%, and it will add a lot of value. So this is how the deployment of SAP ILM looks like. You have your data archiving, standard procedures. If you put SAP ILM, you are able to comply with all of those things with retention management. You can then use retention warehouse for doing system decommissioning, and you can decommission SAP data. And then you can also decommission non-SAP data with the same token. How do we address those things? These are our 6 R's. See, many times customer says, I need to make this process predictable. I should know what exactly is coming and what are the challenges I'm going to face. This is how we make sure this whole process is predictable for you. This is how we make sure that you have minimal risk coming through as part of this implementation. And we cover all of those exercises not only for conventional databases, but also for your ECC deployment. Meaning, once you're live with it, you should be able to do the same process even onto the new platform. We are able to do all of those things. And here are some examples that, okay, if you went through the Greenfield environment, the things to do: deploy decommissioning process with SAP Retention Warehouse with OpenText as a third-party solution. If you're doing system conversions, deploy aggressive archiving data volume management process and use SAP's ILM for storing, for compliance, and for other needs out there. So this was a quick webcast about how we can help, how we can comply, and how we can accelerate your S4 deployment and the different techniques and 5 accelerators that you can use for addressing those needs. I will pass the microphone over to Alex and to Katie for addressing all the questions that you have asked as part of this webcast, or if you have sent an email to us.
Thank you, Deepak. All right, that's it for the webcast. I'll actually pass the mic along to Katie, and she'll go through a few of the questions that you guys had.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in this afternoon. I know everyone has such a busy schedule, and we really appreciate you guys attending. A big thanks again to Deepak and Bill. They both did a great job. We have some really cool tools here at Auritas, and we're really excited to share them with you. So if you are interested, I will be sending out a recording of this presentation to everyone that attended the webinar. So it looks like we have time for at least one question here, and it looks like someone asked, I'm interested in migrating over to S4HANA. What is the one thing I can do that will have the most impact? And I will send that question over to Deepak.
Thank you. I can assure you there is no one thing that will make this whole technology shift in your environment make impactful. But again, considering we are all about data and we are all about making sure that, you know, that the back end or the foundation of your information is all up to date so that you're able to comply with that, I would suggest that if you have your data requirements needs all addressed, what is it that you need? What is it that you're going to consume in the short term, in the long term? If you are able to address all of those things before you move to your S4 platform, I would say you have addressed a sizable amount of complexity just with that particular initiative.
All right, thank you, Deepak. That's it for the Q&A. Big thanks to our presenters as well as our attendees. This concludes our webcast. Have a great afternoon, everyone.